The Latin name Libya referred to the region west of the Nile Valley, generally corresponding to modern northwest Africa. Its people were ancestors of the modern Berber people. Berbers occupied the area for thousands of years before the beginning of human records in ancient Egypt. Climate changes affected the locations of the settlements. More narrowly, Libya could also refer to the country immediately west of Egypt, viz. Marmarica and Cyrenaica. The Libyan Sea or Mare Libicum was the part of the Mediterranean south of Crete, between Cyrene and Alexandria. In the Greek period the Berbers were known as Libyans, a Greek term for the inhabitants of northwest Africa. Their lands were called Libya, and extended from modern Morocco to the western borders of ancient Egypt. Modern Egypt contains the Siwa oasis, historically part of Libya, where the Berber Siwi language is still spoken. Name. The name Libya was the Latin designation for the region of northwest Africa, from the Greek. In classical Greece, the term had a broader meaning, encompassing the continent that later became known as Africa, which, in antiquity, was assumed to constitute one-third of the world's land mass, besides Europe and Asia. The Greek name is based on the ethnonym Libu. The land of the Libu was Lambda Iota Beta Upsilon Eta and Lambda Iota Beta Upsilon in the Attic and Doric dialects, respectively. These Libu have been attested since the Late Bronze Age as inhabiting the region. The oldest known references to the Libu date to Ramesses II and his successor Merneptah, Egyptian rulers of the 19th dynasty. During the 13th century BCE, Lbw appears as an ethnic name on the Merneptah stela. Homer also names Libya, in Odyssey. Menelaus had traveled there on his way home from Troy. It was a land of wonderful richness, where the lambs have horns as soon as they are born, where use lamb 3 times a year and no shepherd ever goes short of milk, meat or cheese. Homer used the name in a geographic sense, while he called its inhabitants Latophagi, meaning lotus eaters. After Homer, Aeschylus, Pindar, and other ancient Greek writers used the name. When Greeks actually settled in the real Libya in the 630s, the old name taken from Egyptians was applied by the Greeks of Cyrenaica, who may have coexisted with the Libu. Later, the name appeared in the Hebrew language, written in the Bible as Lehabim and Lubim, indicating the ethnic population and the geographic territory as well. Herodotus used Lambda Iota Beta Upsilon Eta Libu to indicate the African continent. The Libus proper were the light-skinned North Africans, while those south of the ancient Egypt were known to him as Ethiopians. This was also the understanding of later Greek geographers such Diodorus, Strabo, Pliny the Elder, etc. In the Neo-Punic inscriptions, it was written as Lby for the masculine noun, and Lbt for the feminine noun of Libyan. Latin absorbed the name from Greek and the Punic languages. The Romans would have known them before their colonization of North Africa, because of the Libyan role in the Punic Wars against the Romans. The Romans used the name Libys, but only when referring to Barca and the western desert of Egypt. The other Libyan territories became known as Africa. Classical Arabic literature called Libya Lubia, indicating a speculative territory west of Egypt. Modern Arabic uses Libya, Lwatae. The tribe of Ibn Battuta, as the Arabs called it, was a Berber tribe that mainly was situated in Cyrenaica. This tribe may have ranged from the Atlantic Ocean to modern Libya, however, and was referred to by Coripius as Liguatan. He linked them with the Moors. Ibn Khaldun reports, in the history of Ibn Khaldun, that Liwa was an ancestor of this previous tribe. He writes that the Berbers add an a and t to the name for the plural forms. Subsequently, it became Lwat. Conversely, the Arabs adopted the name as a singular form, adding an h for the plural form in Arabic. Ibn Khaldun disagrees with Ibn Hazm, who claimed, mostly on the basis of Berber sources, that Lwat, in addition to Sidrata and Mazetta, were from the Qibts. According to Ibn Khaldun, this claim is incorrect because Ibn Hazm had not read the books of the Berber scholars. Oric Bates, a historian, considers that the name Libya or Lbw would be derived from the name Luwata, whilst the name Liwata is a derivation of the name Libya. History. Compared with the history of Egypt, historians know little about the history of Libya, as there are few surviving written records. There were many Berber tribes in ancient Libya, including the now extinct Sili, with the Libya being the most prominent. The ancient Libyans were nomad hunter-gatherers, living off their goats, camels and other livestock while hunting and gathering at the same time. Milk, meat, hides and wool were gathered from their livestock for food, tents and clothing. Ancient Egyptian sources describe Libyan men with long hair, braided and beaded, neatly parted from different sides and decorated with feathers attached to leather bands around the crown of the head while wearing thin robes of antelope hide, dyed and printed, crossing the shoulder and coming down until mid-calf length to make a robe. Older men kept long braided beards. Women wore the same robes as men, plaited, decorated hair, and both genders wore heavy jewelry. Weapons included bows and arrows, hakits, spears and daggers. The Libyan script that was used in Libya was mostly a funerary script. It is difficult to understand, and there are a number of variations. Information on ancient Libya comes from archaeological evidence and historic sources written by Egyptians' neighbors, the ancient Greeks, Romans, and Byzantines, and from Arabs of medieval times. Since Neolithic times, the climate of North Africa has become drier. A reminder of the desertification of the area is provided by megalithic remains, which occur in great variety of form and in vast numbers in presently arid and uninhabitable wastelands. Dolmens and circles like Stonehenge, cairns, underground cells excavated in rock, barrows topped with huge slabs, and step pyramid-like mounds. Most remarkable are the Trilithons, some still standing, some fallen, which occur isolated or in rows, and consist of two squared uprights standing on a common pedestal that supports a huge transverse beam. In the Tergut Valley, Cowper says, there had been originally no less than 18 or 20 megalithic trilithons, in a line, each with its massive altar placed before it. In ancient times, the Phoenicians and Carthaginians, Achaemenid Empire of Iran, the armies of Alexander the Great and his Ptolemaic successors from Egypt, then Romans, Vandals, and local representatives of the Byzantine Empire ruled all or parts of Libya. The territory of modern Libya had separate histories until Roman times, as Tripoli and Cyrenaica. Cyrenaica, by contrast, was Greek before it was Roman. It was also known as Pentapolis, the five cities being Cyrene with its port of Apollonia, Arsinoe, Berenice and Barca. From the oldest and most famous of the Greek colonies, the fertile coastal plain took the name of Cyrenaica. These five cities were also known as the Western Pentapolis, not to be confused with the Pentapolis of the Roman era on the current West Italian coast. Geography. The exact boundaries of ancient Libya are unknown. It lay west of ancient Egypt and was known as Tihenu to the ancient Egyptians. Libya was an unknown territory to the Egyptians. It was the land of the spirits. To the ancient Greeks, Libya was one of the three known continents along with Asia and Europe. In this sense, Libya was the whole known African continent to the west of the Nile Valley and extended south of Egypt. Herodotus described the inhabitants of Libya as two peoples, the Libyans in northern Africa and the Ethiopians in the south. According to Herodotus, Libya began where ancient Egypt ended, and extended to Cape Spartel, south of Tangier on the Atlantic coast. Modern geographers suspect severe climate change may have affected the ancient Libyans by causing loss of forests, reliable fresh water sources, and game availability as the area became more desert-like. Lake Tritonese divided the Berber cultures. Ibn Khaldun divided the Berbers into the Batr and the Baranish. Herodotus divided them into Eastern Libyans and Western Libyans. Eastern Libyans were nomadic shepherds east of Lake Tritonis. Western Libyans were sedentary farmers who lived west of Lake Tritonis. At one point, a catastrophic change reduced the vast body of fresh water to a seasonal lake or marsh. Ibn Khaldun and Herodotus distinguish the Libyans on the basis of their lifestyles rather than ethnic background. Modern historians tend to follow Herodotus's distinction. Examples: Oric Bates in his book The Eastern Libyans. Some other historians have used the modern name of the Berbers in their works, such as the French historian Gabriel Camps. The Libyan tribes mentioned in these sources were Adiamakadai, Gilagamath, Aspistay, Marmaradai, Aushisa, Nasamones, Maker, Lotus Eaters, Garamantis, Gatchalians, Moors, and Luata, as well as many others. Genetic history. Ancient Libyans males primarily carried the E1b1b1a4 mutation, also found among populations in other parts of East Africa and the Mediterranean. E1b1b1b is also presumed to have expanded into western Libya from northwest Africa during the Capsian culture and is defined by the so-called Berber marker. Genetic studies show that this double origin of male lineages is still present amongst modern Libyans, while it is absent amongst the indigenous Berbers of northwest Africa, indicating a unique ancient Libyan genetic makeup that possibly existed as far as the Neolithic age.